And welcome to another week of Roll of 24. This is the 24th week of 2026. This covers 15 to 21 June 2026. And in this week's, once again, an eclectic array of photographs that were taken throughout the week. And one of the things I was practicing on was, this is the week before the 4th of July, so I had some firework fountains left over from Christmas time, New Year's, and took these out at 10:30 at night to practice in the backyard for the camera settings, and took a trip out to the local dog park where Charlie met up with some new dogs that he'd never had encountered before. And another thing was, I was in the backyard and captured some birds and squirrels that were very interesting and unique, in a sense that some of the birds, I set up a flash and sat about 30 feet away with the 200 to 800 and used the flash to capture them. Another one was my neighbor across the street. He parks his truck underneath a pecan tree, and it was leaking out sap, and on the front of the car were wasps, and in the back of the car on his black cargo thing were a bunch of flies. And he had told me about this earlier in the day, and I asked him, he was getting ready to wash the car and stuff, and I asked him, hey, can you hold off on that until I come over later this afternoon and bring over my camera? So we spent about an hour out there taking various pictures with the macro lens attached. Very interesting pictures. And so right here is image number one. This is over at the Colleen Dog Park, and Charlie and I were out there, and it was interesting in a sense that, so you can see it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Normally we don't go that late in the day, and it was been bad weather the last couple of days, so there were quite a few other people out there. And this was two new dogs that Charlie had never met before, and I captured these two while they were chasing each other. I think Charlie is just over to the right, and he comes in a little bit to play. I like the vest that the dog's wearing. It says best friend. I thought it was a service animal at first, but no, it's just a unique vest harness for that dog. And here is image number two. And Charlie has played with several other huskies out there at the park. Again, this was the first time that he was introduced to this husky. They did get along pretty good, and they'd been running around for about 10-15 minutes here. And this time the water fountain out at the park is working. It's been on and off all year long. But Charlie was just, you can see his tongue sticking out there waiting his turn. So that was nice that he wasn't trying to bogart his way in there and take the water from the dog. So pretty unique. I was only at 168 millimeters. I was actually laying down on the ground in the center of the park so I could reduce the distance from me to the animals. And here is my purposeful picture for the week. And I was able to do this in camera. And so what it is you set the camera up into a multifunction mode, and you take one picture, which I took the picture of the tree, and the clouds were really nice. And for this, I had the R5 because it has a hand grip on it, and so it has an additional button. So I took the picture of the tree, and then the owner was very generous and helpful and had the dog come over near me. Still difficult to capture another dog, and I had the camera upside down trying to get the tree and the dog meshed together, and I think I turned out really well in this image. And like as I mentioned during the introduction, my neighbor has this black cover over the back of his Ford 150. And he told me about these insects staying on his vehicle, eating up the sap. So I went over there with the macro lens, and this image and several other ones just remind me as a kid when I was growing up and watching the movie The Fly. I was just, when you look at these flies, yeah, you can tell their eyes are red, but when you take a macro shot of them and then put them in a computer screen, it's just amazing how vibrant and orange red they are. So I just love the feet also on this insect. Now, I'm not sure if this is the same fly I just captured. I captured probably about 300 images of them using a very narrow depth of field, trying to capture them with the macro lens, and they're walking around moving on the back of this vehicle. So a lot of them were out of focus, and I did not even realize that I was captured this one in flight, and thus probably why it's out of focus some. The back is nicely focused, the head is not. But when I was going through and looking at all the different pictures, I had to go back and forth, and oh, this one's actually flying away, and I was able to freeze the wing motion, which is surprising because I'm only at 1/200 and at f7.1. As I mentioned, there were a variety of different insects on the back of these. Some of them I was totally unsuccessful in capturing because they would not stay still. But here is one of two images of these green flies, and very narrow depth of field. I was able to capture this just under the lens and on the screen. You see the green when you're standing there, but you don't really, or at least I don't see the other colors of the insects while they're on the back of this truck. And of course, I'm looking through the lens trying to capture the images, but I moved up to f9 so that I can get the whole insect into focus, because there was no way I was going to do any focus stacking on moving insects. And so here is the second of two images of these green flies. There were probably about 15 or 20. That being said, they would land and then take off pretty quick, maybe 1 or 2 seconds. So I pretty much positioned myself where I was, once again, observe your surroundings. And I saw where they continually landed. And you can see the eyelashes on this one. I was just amazed when I was processing these, and you can see the little whiskers in the center of its mouth. And once again, these eyes are golden orange, totally different from the previous fly where they were more amber, I guess. Anyway, it's just really pretty. And so here's the last of the fly images. Like I said, I probably shot a couple hundred pictures, but only very few of them turned out. And this one is perfectly in the field of focus. And of course, it's sideways to me, so I get the whole thing in focus. And when I processed this and took a screenshot and sent it to my kids, one of them came back and thought it was one of those metallic toys you assemble from the toy store. So very unique. Just love how the lens was able to capture the hairs and everything, and the eyes. It'd be interesting to see what it is that and how these flies can visualize the world. Very interesting. And so after about 45 minutes on the back of the truck capturing the flies and the green flies and the regular housefly, I guess. I don't know what kind of flies they are. Anyways, I moved to the front of the vehicle, which has a silver metallic paint job. And there were probably about 6 or 7 wasps flying around. And normally, you get nervous with wasps flying around. These wasps were just so focused on eating up or sucking up the sap from the pecan tree that was dripping on this car. Just love the sideways profile as F13. And I told my neighbor he needs to wax his car so I can get a better reflection, because I almost captured that in this image. And here is the second of two of the wasp images. This one was back just a little bit closer to the windshield versus being out front where there was more light coming in. And I chose this one because I just loved how the antennae are curled up and everything else. Very interesting. They curl all the way back to the eyes and then sweep back out, come back in. And now these insects have these black eyes, and you can see the sun and the reflection coming off the hood of the car going back into the bottom. And it's just amazing how thin the abdomen is when you get back, or whatever, the thorax that attaches the front of the wasp to its tail. Just amazing how thin that is. And so now it's the 17th of June, and Charlie had not been out to a dog park in a couple days, nor anywhere else. So he was getting a little antsy, so I took him out to the dog park here. It's 11 o'clock. and he met another new dog for the very first time. Very friendly, and once again, he's being very polite. And, well, considering that's their own water bowl, because you have to bring out your own water and bowls now, because once again, the fountains that you saw earlier are no longer working. They've been up and down like 4 or 5 times this year. But there were quite a few dogs out here this day that Charlie had never met before nor played with, and so he really had a good time. And here is number 2 of 3 new dogs that Charlie got to meet and interact with. This is some type of hunting dog. It's like 5 years old is what the owner stated. And very friendly, very nice. I did have some dog treats still left in my pocket, so got an opportunity and bribed the dog to be nice to me. Here's a couple treats. Don't bite me. Once again, they and Charlie had a good time running around. Of course, Charlie could never catch this dog, being a hunting dog with a longer stride than Charlie does. But very friendly, and it was nice enough to give me this beautiful pose. And here is the last of the new dogs that Charlie got to meet that day. And this dog is a little puppy, probably about 5, 6 months old, I believe what the owner said. But Charlie was a little rough with this guy. And I was like, well, Charlie, you have fun now, because probably in about 4 or 5 months, this dog's almost going to be double your weight. Charlie's weighing in at about 55 pounds, but this is a large breed dog, or a huge breed dog, whatever they call after large. And so even at this size, being a puppy, it equaled Charlie's height, not his weight, but they had a good time. A little rough at times, though. So later in the afternoon, we're on the 17th, and the sun's starting to go down here soon. And these crepe myrtles are on the side of my house, on the west side of my house. You can see this is 7:28 in the evening. Sunset was around 8:15, 8:30. And I had seen how the light was reflecting on these the day before, and I told myself, hey, you need to go out and take some pictures of the crepe myrtles before they start wilting and falling off. And I just loved how the yellow was intermixed, and you can still see some new seed pods on there. And in this photo, the clouds were very accommodating. Instead of just a solid blue sky, I did have some wispy clouds on the right-hand side. And here is another image of a crepe myrtle. This is with, I don't want to call them prongs, but the center focus on this one was actually right down in the middle where the green leaves are at, in order to try and capture both of the flowers in focus. I tried to focus stack this with 7 different pictures, but that was totally unsuccessful because there was slight movement throughout with a really mild breeze, barely 1 or 2 miles an hour, but it was enough that the focus stacking failed totally. So this was just the best of all the images, where I was focused in towards the center and still able to capture the flowers in some detail. And so after I finished capturing the flowers out front, which I did not use a tripod, but I went and got a tripod here and set the camera up in the front yard, because I was like, I wonder what these grape leaves will look like at nighttime with a flash going off, which is going to be the subsequent picture here. And so I found a position to capture this, put a bird's feather down on the ground so I could find it at night in the dark. And so I captured these pictures here of these grapes. These grapes grow every summer, and they just keep getting bigger and bigger. Have some wire underneath them to keep them up off the ground, and still able to use the walkway. And so here is the nighttime photo that I selected. I took probably about 10 or 15 of them. I kept on going in and having to reposition the flash to get what I wanted, which was pretty interesting. So I have a flash on a tall stand that's about 5 feet tall, and had the flash facing probably about a 45-degree upwards. And then I had another flash on yet another stand over on the right-hand side. That one's not as powerful. It's the one that's actually for on camera, but I can also use it off camera. And so I had these synced together. They were at 1/16 of a power. The 1/32 of a power was too light, and 1/4 and 1/8 were just way too bright. And so between those pictures of the grape leaves out front, one was done in the afternoon, one was done in the evening. Anyways, Lovely and Bride and I were in the swimming pool, and I was cleaning out the leaf catcher, and I found this bug, and it was still alive. And so I rolled it up on top of this item. It's not a rock. I forgot what it was. But anyways, it's a pine weevil, a large pine weevil, and it was still slowly moving around. I guess it was still partly drowned. Anyways, I brought it into the office and quickly grabbed the RF 100 and started taking a bunch of macro images in the office, and I think this turned out really well. And so now this is June 20th, so we're getting ready for the 4th of July coming up. And over the New Year's, down here in Texas, you can buy fireworks. And so I went out and bought a bunch of these little fountains. That's about 3-inch fountain. And because I only shoot fireworks twice a year, really only once a year during the big 4th of July celebration here in our town, I was like, what are the settings again? So I went in, rifled around, found these, and set them up on a table that I have outside that I do a lot of work at, and retested and recalibrated all the different cameras for different time sensing to capture these. So now is June 21st, and had some birds flying in, and once again, sometimes I still struggle with the 200 to 800, because when that thing's fully extended out, it's kind of unwieldy. And so I was setting this up, and this and the next image, they came out at 16,000 ISO and 25,600 ISO. So I took these pictures, and then you'll see eventually where I actually went and set up a flash. But I just love these birds in that they're a blackbird, but when you look at them through the lens and get them in post, they're really kind of bluish black, and it's really interesting. So now it's 2 hours later. It's near 3:30 here while I'm setting up. I was out in the backyard actually at the barbecue pit, and I had seen this blackbird in the tree that I have in my front yard, and turn down the heat so the meat wouldn't burn. Went and grabbed the camera because it was still set up with the 200 to 800, and went back over where the barbecue pit's at, and sat down in the chair there. And this bird was flying in and out, and so I captured this one. I have a bunch of other ones, but the branches are in its way, and this one, the bird's looking towards me, so just a great capture. And the sun was still coming out, so I got some sunlight speckles. And so just like the night before when I did the grape leaves, I was like, I wonder, because when I'm shooting or not shooting, but photographing the animals in the back area, even in the morning, late afternoon, the ISO is always bumping up because it's such a dark area because of the crepe myrtles and everything else. And so I went out and set up a flash on the left-hand side, and the flash will work for about 50 feet away, and where I sit is about 35 feet away. And so I set up the flash, and this one is still at 25,600 because I was still working and figuring the flash out, and the flash did not trigger. And now here are two successful, this image and the next image, of me capturing birds in the evening on the back area. You can see this is 7:38 in the evening. I threw some more bird seed out there because I always have some birds coming in late in the evening, but I wanted them to land in a specific area, roughly a specific area. And I just love this picture of the birds looking over right where the flash was triggering. It took a while because when the flash is recharging, it makes a low whine. And after this image here, the birds would take off, and it takes somewhere 3, 5, 8 minutes for the birds to come back and start feeding again. So nice picture though. And so here is the last image for this week's roll of 24. Again, the flash is off on the left-hand side, and I thought this one was great. I caught the bird perfectly on the side looking forward while it was eating some of the nuts or berries or whatever is inside of birdseed. And I just love how I was able to, this is with the 200 to 800, and you can see the eyelashes of the bird, and just the detail and everything. And I was never thought I'd be able to catch a bird with a flash, but I was. And so this is something I'm going to have to give it another go down the road and see how successful I can repeat this. Well, I hope you again enjoyed this week's roll of 24. Again, this is the 24th week of 2026, covering the period of 15 to 21 June. If you enjoyed this presentation, please consider subscribing and hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.